We just got back from Vegas. We just got done with an intense week of SUA at the Galactic Championships. We had a great time, but we're here to break it down a little deeper. We're going to talk about our experiences, how we did as a team, the finer points of the weekend, some of the event organization, the pros and the cons, and we're going to try to, as always, have a good time doing it. I'm Jordan from the Colorado Cantina Crew, and I'm joined by two guys that I've spent too much time with over the past 4 days, so let's keep this brief, okay, dudes? Kyle and Sharky, welcome on in. How's everybody feeling?
You know, still trying to wake up. I think you're going to be able to tell by all three of our voices that, you know, the last night in Vegas was definitely the party night, right? So it was a struggle.
Spent together,
it was a struggle
loosely
getting to the airport.
in the Vegas realm, we're a bunch of nerds. But you know, for us, I think I had like 2/3 of a drink. So man, I was out there, you know. So yeah, we had a great weekend in Vegas. Like that's the first thing off the top, right? So it's always great to go to Vegas for me. I love Vegas. I know some people don't. Good food, good friends, some good fun, some negative stuff too. And we're gonna try to be objective and talk through it and like I mentioned, have some fun as well. So right up top, the first thing I want to say is really appreciate everybody that came up and said that hey, they enjoyed the podcast. It was great to put some faces to names and meet some people who are enjoying the stuff. It really means a lot to you when you come up. And all three of us had the experience. I got a nice little Pez dispenser from the listeners. So love that. You know, that's one of the parts of this where we'll have some negativity coming a bit later, right? But one of the positives is that you get to meet people that you talk to online in a non-creepy way. You get to have fun with your friends week after week and, you know, meet some new people, whether you're waiting in a line for 3 hours and you form a nice friendship or whatever. So what were your guys' main takeaway of the weekend overall?
The whole weekend honestly was a great time. Like all things considered, even our nitpicks are like they're there, but it was a fun time. And frankly, if you get the chance to go to an event like this in any kind of game, I think you should take it.
Yep.
Yeah, we talked about it in the show when we were getting ready to head out there, right? Yeah, the number one thing was just to be with your friends, right? Like, what am I going to remember when I look back? I did pretty good. I think I played all right? But I think I remember is going out to dinner, right? Hanging out with the guys, having a good time, going out the night after, all that sort of stuff, right? So I thought it was a lot of fun. Got to reconnect with some old people, you know. So I shouldn't call them old people. Some old friends, right? From the old Decipher Star Wars CCG days, that sort of thing, and then make some new friends.
Totally. So I firmly agree with all of it. So I wanted to get the positive stuff out so we can't be accused of always being negative. But so this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the winner. Congratulations, Benton. Great deck, great finals with Lego Pizza. I don't know Benton personally, but Ian, we spent some time with. He's a great guy. So he had a great run. The Bothans had a great run. We'll talk about that list a little bit more specifically later in the week. We'll talk about how our team did, how we did as well. We had a good run throughout the weekend. Excited for all the guys and really proud of their performances. We'll talk about the Galactic Open a little bit. We'll talk about some lessons that maybe we would do differently. Would we play the same deck? Would we change anything in our prep and stuff like that? And then we'll talk about the experience. We tried to figure out an objective scale to go through and say, hey, was this perfect? Was it good? Was it needing improvement? Or was it just straight up bad? And unfortunately, there probably was something that was bad, you know? So we'll go through that as well. And then we'll leave you with some nice nuggets and some final thoughts as well. Sound good to you dudes?
Sounds great to me.
Cool. So yeah, like we said, the finals was Lego Pizza versus Benton. We had the infamous Bothan deck, Kylo Tarkentown versus Mother Towson. You know, Kylo obviously wasn't on our radar from the Tarkentown perspective, but Towson seriously was, and a really well played finals. I invite you guys to all watch it if you haven't. We were sitting there live watching on the screens. I'm definitely gonna go back and watch it later, but great gameplay overall. Two fantastic players.
It was phenomenal. I mean, it was super fun also being in the convention hall, getting to watch that on the screens with everybody. Like you could tell they kind of split up into two different camps of who was rooting for who. And generally speaking, it was just a fun time. And the match was awesome.
Yeah.
The deck was cool too. The Kylo. I'm a big fan of how all of that played out. It was great.
Well, and when you talk about the two camps, there was kind of the EU side and the US side in that final, right? You could tell who was on which side, right? I got no shame. I was rooting hard for Ian, right? I like Lego Pizza.
Yeah, we're friends. I wanted him to win too.
Yeah, I wanted him to win, right? I was,
just kidding.
Yeah, I was on that side. Totally. I will say though, with like the Bothan tech, right? There's a couple of times now where they're brewing in their lab, they got their secret thing going on. I'm thinking that's a bunch of nonsense. Whatever. This time it wasn't nonsense, man. This deck was something that I wasn't thinking of. I don't know other people that were thinking of kind of outside of that group.
Sure.
They hit you with a surprise that was a genuine surprise, and it was a really cool deck that also targeted the meta very well, right? So you can see they converted several into day 3, into the top 8, a couple plus just outside the top 8, right? The strategy worked. It was really cool to see. It was a good surprise.
This ain't no
congratulations,
tank.
If I remember right, they had 4 in the top 16. Like
as
much crap as I give my Bothan friends for their secret tech, sometimes this was definitely in the good.
Well, speaking of the party night, we were hanging out with a bunch of them last night, right? So like we could blame them or whatever. But no, it's great run. It's great to see your friends and acquaintances do well, regardless of the situation, right? I'm sure the Swoop Racer and the Enigma guys are great, but the concept of distance makes it harder for you make friends across continent. Imagine that. But really good stuff, and I'm excited to see how that deck develops. Is it unplayable now as we get to PQs coming up next week? We'll see how popular they become, and then we'll actually talk about a little bit of I don't want to call it controversy, but like uncertain and maybe slightly unfair circumstances that fell with some of the changes to the rules for over the weekend. So let's get over to how we did. Kyle and I both had buys, so we made it through day 1, which was great. That's really what you're looking for to start. You want to get through day 1 and 2. Overall, we had 13 teammates play in day 1. We had 5 convert to day 2. And then 3 convert to day 3 after that. So really happy with how the team did. Sharky, you were on the ground playing hard on day 1. So what was your takeaway?
Yeah, day 1 went great. My experience is seemingly significantly different than everybody else because I played 7 different leader-based combinations the whole time. And I had a blast. It was a good time. I ran my patented Cad Bane deck, and it performed very well. And luckily, I didn't ruin it by not performing well. So I was able to get through and qualify after 7 rounds, and my last round was against what is typically a really rough matchup for me. So I spread the gamut from good matchups to bad, and it felt great to be able to convert there. Whereas like Paul, on the other hand, had to grind through a couple matchups that frankly were probably not great, and he had to run into all of the Hans, and he still grounded out and was able to convert. And we've had some in between for all of them. I think my favorite of the conversions was probably Zach doing it with Piet Red.
Sure.
Because that one he changed last minute and kind of came out of nowhere with it. So there was a whole bunch of good things coming around, and we had a few others to get really close, and they qualified for the Open.
Yeah, so if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, Paul has been on in a little guest spot, Sir Toast a lot. He was the only Luke to make it to day 3, Luke Pilot, so just great run there. He also lost his first game and then just fought back, and that's that's resiliency, that's perseverance, and I love to see that. We're going to try to talk to Paul later this week, bring him on to do a little deck tech and talk about that. We're going to try to do that with Makai and Steve as well, who also made day 3. Zach is like a newer member of the team, and he really plays Quinlan a lot, moved on to Han Green, and then kind of just said, hey, I don't want to play Han anymore, and took a shot and made it, right? And I think there was a couple Piets that made it to day 2. He was one of them, so that's great.
Yeah, there weren't many.
Yeah. I think overall, as I look at it, having so many people get from day 1 to day 2 is very cool for me. I'm very excited for the team, especially for a lot of the guys. Like the reality is that like me, you, and like the 3 of us, we travel the most. We go to the most events outside of the area, and it's great to see some of the guys who we know are grinders, who we know are really good, get the recognition that they're owed.
Agreed. That was a good time to see that too, and even the conversion rate from day 2 to day 3 was also very cool to see, and frankly, it was just a fun time.
Yeah.
Well, the day 2 matchup grind, that was, we talked about when we were in Atlanta in Seattle about just kind of the level of competition. Day 2 felt very similar, right? So you kind of, I walked around on day one and saw some of the decks out there. I would say that there was different levels of play. Obviously, as you got into the later rounds, you got to the higher levels of play.
Mm-hmm.
Day two, there was no lower level of play.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
Not
you got
at
into
all.
day two, and this is all the people who had won PQs, previously qualified, all the people who grinded through day one and got it done. I didn't have a single easy matchup, right? So in day two, let's see, I went 5-2-1, so just barely didn't make it to day three. I think I finished 81st, but I played the mirror. I was the mirror man. So like you were talking before, Sharky, about getting to play different stuff. I was worried about this, and we talked about it on the show about not wanting to play Han Blue because I didn't want to play a sea of mirrors.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. It's totally depends. Like I could have played no mirrors, but I ended up playing 4. I went 3-1 in the mirrors. That was nice, right? So I was able to kind of beat down the mirrors. Even the one that I lost, it just felt like a coin flip. Unfortunately, it was, he had initiative twice, so I lost. Actually, out of the 12 mirror games I played, the person with the initiative won 11. I was able to squeak out 1 win, which is what got my record of 3-1 there without initiative. But it was, it really felt initiative heavy on a lot of those matchups, and it was still good to get as far as I got. Right, I got a pile of tickets and some extra black packs, and had a great time.
Yeah. And for context, you played more Han 2s on day 2 than I did in 16 rounds, including day 1.
Yeah,
it's insane.
And then we have me, who openly loves playing mirrors, who it's like one of my favorite parts of the game, and I didn't play a single one. I didn't play a single Han green as well. I played all the hate matchups. I started off, Kyle, like you were mentioning, similar to Atlanta. I played out of the people that I played in Atlanta, out of my 8 rounds, I played 2 of them on day 2, right? Starting with one of our buddies, Mickey from Boston. He beat me down with Quinn, and then later on in the day, I played Zach Getsu from McClunky on Towson Yellow, and both of us, at that point, me and Zach were we were just having a good time. The game, both of our days were respectively over, and that's how it is, right? Like, both of us are qualifying players. Zach has more results than I do, and it could happen. Similar to the round prior to that, we were down in the loser bracket for sure. Tata was right next to me from KTOD, right? So it's like one of those things where everybody has earned their spot, and we'll talk about this is a little tease there, Sharky, where I had a bad judging incident with someone who has had the same kind of results as we did, and claimed ignorance on a few things. And we'll talk about some judging stuff as we do some ratings of the weekend overall. But I do think that every win that you make is hard fought in that situation, right? And when you see somebody like on our team, Paul, Mackay, and Steve really ground through, and they're all great players. They're all putting the work in. I think the first deck that I want to slightly talk about before we talk to Paul later in the week is Luke Dataval, right? He sat there and said, I don't want to play Han. That was his motivating thing. I don't want to play Han, and I want to play a deck that I enjoy playing. And he really attacked the meta in a way that I think was unexpected. And whether it's a situational thing with targeting Hans and things that are weak to space in general, but I think that kind of call when you're this early in the meta deserves some credit.
I agree, and he put a bunch of work in with it too, because
totally.
He did try to play Han a bunch, and he just didn't like it.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he and I kept talking about, because I tried the same deck or a similar deck as well, I'm like, this is just really fun.
Sure.
Luke Pilot, that Data Vault Pilot deck is very fun. It's a little on the unexpected side, so you're kind of catching people a little bit off guard, but people generally have an idea of what Luke is trying to do, so it's not like you're super secret with it. But he just piloted it very well. Not to, he's a pilot playing a pilot deck, but he did a very good job driving through that field, man. And he started off with a rough matchup, and he ended up grinding the whole way through and kept going. So that was pretty cool.
Well, when we were making our predictions, we were talking about what's going to be there, right? Towson was obviously going to be one. Han was going to be one. And we saw those convert. They were in the top 8, right? I think when we were making our predictions of another set 5 leader that would make it, we picked Kylo. Obviously, Kylo was there.
You picked Kylo, right?
That's right.
That's right.
I will remember that. I remember that I picked that because I forgot Kylo was set 5.
Yeah. But the other thing that we predicted was, if something else was going to attack the meta, it was going to be a space-focused aggro.
Yep.
We didn't know what it was, but we said a space-focused aggro is well positioned, and probably not Vader because people are ready for that. And so you saw in the top 8, a Han Pilot Red made it. We saw day 3 conversions, multiple Kaz decks. Both of those were space aggro focused, right? Obviously, shout out to Paul here with the Luke pilot. But there was like kind of the ones that kind of needled in that were unexpected were all, in my view, kind of, space focused attacks. Right. And so I wish I had figured out which one of those would have worked for me, but I think, we were on the right path as to kind of what might sneak in there.
Yeah. And those types of decks, I've been referring to them in my brain as like robust space aggro, like space aggro that will not die instantly to bombing run, space aggro that has some sort of tempo and or shield protect, something like that, right?
Interesting, because I remember you naming them something slightly different, at least in the early.
No. The bullshit pilot decks are when it's just pilot on top. That's like the wedge variant. This is a little different. Shout out to the bullshit pilots. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. Coincidentally, one of my matchups on day 2 was into a Kaz Blue, and I play so much Kaz Blue that I was really happy that I had that experience, because he just ran over me in game 1, exactly how that happens in a Han matchup sometimes. This deck was running 3 Punch It, 3 Breaking In, and 3 Surprise Strike. I looked at the list and I was like, oh, I'm about to take some damage today, and will I catch up? I ended up winning game 2 and 3, but game 1, boom, right over me. So really good stuff there. And then we had Steve, and Steve was running Towson, like we mentioned, really, really grinding. Steve's a great player. He judges a lot too. So Steve doesn't get as many tournament reps as a lot of people on the team because he genuinely enjoys judging. And I think that's a really important part of the community, to have dedicated judges who are actually good players, right? Like that know the competitive landscape and understand the stresses and different experiences of the competitive player.
I think Steve really wanted to be a judge at Galactics.
Yep.
And without taking too many shots, I think to your point, for qualification, I think he was well qualified. How about that?
Yeah.
And I think, a little disappointed he didn't get it. I think at this point, he's probably not, right? Converting into top 64 and having a great time. So I'm kind of glad he didn't get it now, but I'm sure he will be shooting for it again in the future. Right?
Yeah. So, and one thing, just a note on Steve and Paul before we move on to Makai, is that both Paul and Steve had win and ends to get into day 3, and they stepped up and did. I think we had 4 people on the team who had win and ends, Nate and Travis as well, and going 2 and 2 in those situations. Those matches are stressful. They're really tough, and really good to see that. And then Makai, who placed the best on our team, he got 23rd. He was 5th going into day 3. He was on Han Green. Really had some great gameplay, some great matches. Had a couple tough ones though when he ended and getting eliminated to that Han 4 Tarkentown that you mentioned. Those decks go so quickly, and if you don't draw something to handle it, your time to stall and recover is incredibly limited.
Yeah, and in Makai's case, I remember him talking about how he kind of wished like he actually played against Paul on day 2 and was like, I got pretty much lucky to draw what I did because I don't have Bright Hope in the list. And I saw him match up into Han. I'm like, oh, that's gonna be a tough one. That was the play in for top 8, right? Because the Han made it. So whichever one of those two won it, got it to go. And unfortunately, Makai couldn't quite close out game 3, but he made a good run at it, even despite the fact that I think his deck is probably not tilted to fight that kind of thing.
Totally. And Makai's a very, very gifted player. We'll be talking to him later in the week to get some info on how Han Green did it. He had some spice with the Purgle King there. Gonna have to add that to my Han Green build as well. Gotta love that big guy in space. Okay, so on Saturday, for the people that didn't advance, they had the Galactic Open, which I thought was awesome. One thing that I would love is that why don't do that on Sunday for me? Right, Kyle? Like, I'll be selfish for a second. Why not do on-demand PQs? It might be like a little bit too much to ask, but pods of 128, just do it, right? Like I bet you would fill 4 of those in a day.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would have liked to have had like another competitive event to run back on Sunday. I would have participated, because I didn't get to compete. I wasn't playing a competitive event day 1 because I had a bye.
Yeah.
Poor me. Obviously, I love having the bye. But that meant day 2 was my competitive day. And since I didn't quite make day 3, right? I needed that one more win. Would I have gone and competed on day 3? I was ready to go. Absolutely. Right. And so you need a 1-day event. So to your point, it would have to be like a 128 caps PQ, something you could complete in that day.
Yeah.
But that'd been cool to keep going, keep getting that competitive juice going. Because, instead, Sunday ended up being kind of a chill day, which was fine. Playing some sealed deck, hanging out, doing the ticket grind. But if I had the choice, I would have gone for it.
I would categorize Sunday as more of like the line Olympics than a chill day.
One more line.
We'll talk about that later. Yeah, one more line. So another thing, maybe a PQ's too greedy, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the dummy here, but I think one of the overwhelmingly positive experiences from the Denver sectors, which, to be fair, there were only a few, was the promo event on Sunday, in which you spent $50. You got every promo from the set, like that would be the Krennics, the Chewies, the Ray and Kylo, that kind of thing, right? And every match, it was a 4-round and competitive SWU event, and you got 400 tickets per win. And everybody loved it, right? Like, Give me something, and that's just some feedback, and I have a lot of it, right? So I'm one to complain here and there. So moving on to the Open, we had Nate Space Bear get top 8, so congrats there. Earning points, getting really close to that qualification for next year.
So that's all of it. No, top 8. I think he gets 100 points. He's done.
I think he's qualified. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh. Well, we got Hey,
we got one.
Congratulations, Nathan. Right, and we're gonna be trying to do a collab with Nate coming up because he has his YouTube channel, Space Bear, which makes some great content, has some great interview stuff as well. So really great stuff there. And then we had Caleb and Alex also earning some points towards qualification. So starting the season off on a good foot, right? We now know how many points we need to be able to get that invite, and it's that target that we all better hit. That's the goal, right? We need to do it. So. Any other notes there on the team before we move on to some lessons, some introspection?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of is just an overall, again, hand clap, right? I think as a team, we're not one of the biggest teams out there. We're not the Bothans, sure. We're just a group of friends who met in Colorado and are playing together and kind of formed a group to play with together. And, to have those results, to have that many conversions, to day 3, to have the amount of people we had in the top 100 also, and the open placements, I thought it was awesome, right? Like overall results, very strong for, the size of team, the length of team that we have, hopefully I think that puts a little shine on our name, which I like to see, right? Mm-hmm. We didn't show up and get crushed, right? We played well, mentally stayed in it. And I had a good time.
Yeah, 100%. And step by step, day by day, we're just trying to improve. We're just trying to get more wins, more buys, more qualifications while having fun, right? Like we need to be able to do both of those things. And I think, I think there's, I'm from the East Coast, so I'll say this freely. In life, there is a lot of East Coast bias, right? Like everything is kind of slanted towards that. And a lot of the best players in this game, that's where they live, right? There's a high concentration of events you could go to. It's easy to travel. We make it work out here. We try to travel. We do our stuff. But I think, we can compete any day of the week with most people, and we're going to work to continue to get better. We're going to refine our processes. And speaking of that refinement, some lessons, right? I know personally I have a few in terms of our prep, in terms of tightening things up a little bit, being a little bit more diligent with our respective responsibilities. I think, the three of us do a good job of structuring things and getting to work, but I really want to make sure we get some more structure to the whole process, right? And get as many cooks in the kitchen as we can to get good data and relevant data. So as we look at these lessons, Kyle, would you play the same deck? Would you play on 2 blue?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the result was okay, right? But I was proud of the amount of wins I got. But I think the biggest problem that I had was I flip-flopped, right? I was pretty set on Quinlan, 4 or 5 days leading up. I was spending a lot of time on Quinlan. Mm-hmm. I was getting my Quinlan reps. I was pretty set on Quinlan. And then I got smacked around in one play session. And thanks, Nate. And, I let that affect my judgment a little too much. It kind of had me worried playing that deck. If I go back, I should have stuck with what I was really prepping for. I mean, I had my reps in Han Blue, that's fine. But I was really like at the doorstep prepping with Quinlan, and I wish I had stuck to my guns there.
Well, from the outside, I'll say I would imagine that you had significantly more reps with Han Blue in practice, but. Mm-hmm. The trend of practice, the schedule of practice towards the end, you were feeling a little disillusioned with Han and wanting to try alternates. And I think as a team, that's something that we didn't spend enough time exploring in this, really, really tight ramp up to Galactics. Now everything's in the past. We kind of, talk about the decks that we had locked down and we're secretive about, because, we're not the Baldwins aren't the only secret keepers. But for a while we were working on a Kylo ECL build that we thought had a lot of promise. We were working on a Grand Inquisitor build, GI1, that had a lot of promise. Even for a while before Han 2 Blue really hit the scene, like Kit was destroying and testing for us in a lot of situations, right? And I think after that first phase of development, we moved on to Han's the best, let's refine Han, as opposed to attacking Han a little bit more specifically. And that's one of my bigger regrets from the session.
I totally agree. We got stuck on Han, right? We kind of said, this is the best deck. How do we continue to improve it? That sort of thing. To your point there, we started with Kylo. The first deck I put together was Kylo, and I said, this is the deck. And I think as a team, we thought, oh my God, we broke the meta. This is it. And then we found its weaknesses and we kind of got off of it. And I wish, to your point with the refinement, had I stayed on it, right? I didn't make the leap to Tarkin Town, right? I was stuck on ECL and I didn't spend the time fixing what was broken, instead moved off to Han, right? And I want to give some more credit here too. I think that the innovators of the Kylo deck it was George the Hulk and Lego Pizza were kind of the primaries, and the Bothan team refined it. But, I think if we had stuck longer on that leader specifically, we could have started getting towards that innovation. I mean, looking back, obviously, Migs and Tarkin Town was it, right? That's brilliant, right? To deal with some of the early aggressive, to deal with some of the early problems that plagued Kylo ECL, right? They made that next step. And so perhaps we could spend more time or break off as a team into like subgroups and say, no, I'm going to keep grinding this. I'm going to keep working on it, instead of kind of homogenizing on these are the best two decks. Let's refine here. What do you think, Shark?
I think there's a little bit of a give and take there, because while we may have also probably left the Kylo ECL in the bin a little too early, and we did cycle back to it a little bit towards the end, recognizing that Han 2 was likely to give you the best chance isn't exactly an incorrect take either, right? It was a very strong deck. It was a very consistent deck. And so instead of splitting up into, we kind of did our own thing the last week and a half, but we did spend a lot of time on, hey, okay, what is this week into? What beats it? How do we beat it? How do you guys prepare to see the things that can beat it? And so we kind of did a good process with the Han decks. We just didn't do a good job of making sure that everybody's on the same page as to what you're going to play. And if you're going to play, how do you attack into, or how do you be attacked? And I think we can structure our development a little bit better from that perspective. And we also stopped actually, excuse me, in my opinion, designing new stuff, which the creativity part of the decks sometimes bleeds between them.
Sure.
So like I stopped working on Kit for a while, but a lot of the stuff that we started coming back to in Han, I'm like, I ran that in Kit, it worked like this.
Yeah.
And so some of that development and design can still mesh together, even if it's late in the process, that I think we can probably do a little bit better about. But when you're on a time crunch and at some point you have to start figuring out where to start spending your time. And so I understand where we went a little bit off and why we got there, but we can probably redirect some of that energy into, hey, someone come up with another good idea and then you guys go break it kind of thing. Whereas we kind of all started focusing very narrowly on what we were playing. I actually think, like, from my perspective, I was usually, I've talked about this on the podcast before, I'm usually in the attack it side of things as opposed to the join it. And so from my perspective, I felt very prepared for a meta that I was walking into, and I didn't even end up seeing a lot of them. So I was a little bummed about that, but so I think overall the prep was pretty good. Sorry.
There's no worries. There's a couple of things there, right? One is that the time crunch is tough, right? Creativity doesn't happen as on a schedule, as they say, right? And being able to get enough volume of reps, I think, was a concern I had, and I think a fair concern, right? Like, you need the mix of all of that stuff to be prepared. The other aspect is that I think our Han build, which we'll talk about probably on the next episode, was like really geared to do well in the mirror, right? Like that was one of our main focuses on how to attack it. And then we have a situation where like Kyle plays a bunch, Sharky plays a handful, I play 0, right? And that's just how it goes sometimes. We see that the prep really worked for Makai and Han Green. I think he was 4-1 against Han Blues over the weekend, which is awesome. And then Kyle had his success as well. For me, if I ask myself the question, would I play the same deck? And I thought about this a lot as I was struggling on the plane home and otherwise. I don't think I would. I think that going into the weekend, I was less confident than I normally am with my prep level in terms of major tournaments. Like when we went to Atlanta, I felt great. When we went to Sectors, I felt even better because of Atlanta prior to that. Like there hasn't been a single PQ, maybe outside of the Sandy PQ in set 2 that we went to, Kyle, where I wanted to switch to Boss Blue over Sabine, but I didn't have the reps. That was like in the infancies of our team. Like we didn't even have like a formal team at that point, and we were mostly just testing with like us and maybe 4 other people, give or take, right? But I do not think that I was prepared enough against the decks like Cad, Quinlan, and Talzin specifically, and unfortunately, that's who I played. I think in hindsight, which is, really easy to say, I think I should have played Kaz. I really do. I think that it's really hard to beat a deck like that when you're teching super hard for decks like Han. Will that change moving forward? Like if I'm going to a PQ this weekend, would I play Kaz? I don't know. I think I would probably play Quinn, or maybe I would try the Kylo Tarkentown and just give it a whirl and see how it went. But I don't think I would play Han Blue. If I had to rank it, I think Han Blue would be relatively low on my list, actually. I think I would be higher on Han Green again, which was my original instinct as we started working on Hans this set. So, I think there's some lessons that we could learn moving forward, and I think we're gonna put them into practice, and then hopefully when this next set of PQs come out, and to be honest, I might go this weekend. I might go to Albuquerque. We'll see how it goes. I might just load up the car, bring Carl, my dog, and get a dog sitter, defend my Albuquerque title, and see how it goes.
Yeah, I tried to help with the Cad Bane preparation for you guys. And it seemed to work for a lot of the team. Like
it works.
I got a lot of them looking at me like, "Hey, dude, thanks for playing Cad Bane," because I actually beat a couple of them because we had those practice games that we did.
Yeah. I played a Cad on day 2, and I got him right. So that was good because I think Cad's probably a bad matchup for Han Blue. I think a lot of people who were coming into the meta with Cad were targeting Han specifically, and I got that win. So I think a lot of that comes from playing against probably too much Cad.
Yeah, I think it's just a tough matchup, right? I think there's a lot of ways to win, but I think there's more ways to lose. And sometimes, like in the Cad game, for instance, like I drew back-to-back Fell and Rivals in both turns and had nothing to play on a round. Like you won't win a Cad game when you can't play something. And that's no excuse. It's just what happens sometimes as you're doing it. I set the line a lot over the weekend in terms of randomness and luck and skill and all these things, and I think I'm going to try to internalize it more. And that's, if you want a game lacking randomness or randomness rather, play chess, right? Like play a perfectly solved game, right? Play a game that doesn't involve cards, because there's always going to be RNG. And if you can't embrace that and accept that, you're in the wrong place. Oh, okay. So any final notes there?
I would definitely play the same deck. That's all I have.
Cool.
Shocking you, everybody, I know. But I think Cad Bane's in the best position he's ever been in, and I know that deck very well.
Why don't you think he was able to convert to a top 8?
Let's go back to the randomness you just spoke about.
Okay.
There was a play-in for top 8 on stream where both a Talzin and a Cad Bane player went to time, and the winner of that would have made top 8. So I do think he would have converted. And obviously not in the same numbers. Cad Bane generally is not an easy deck to play if you're not used to it. There's some lines that are popular but wrong, in my opinion, and I think that there's a lot of ways to play Cad in a way that puts you behind. And the guys at the top, I actually got to talk to a couple of them, are ones I think that all of them had a shot, or were within one win of making that top cut too. So there was actually 3 of them in the top, I think 32. So that's a pretty good conversion rate considering there was roughly 5% of the field, I think, playing Cad.
Yeah, so we like we said, we just got back today. We wanted to get something recorded. We haven't had a chance to really dive into the data and the statistics yet. We're going to do that on the next episode this week. But, I'm a little surprised that that Quinlan was as underrepresented as he was. I thought he was really well situated. Obviously, Wu from KTOD did a great job piloting him to the number 1 seed going into day 3. But I'm interested to see how the Towsons develop and how they match up with Cad and stuff like that. I think that Kylo matchup is a pretty interesting one for Cad as well. I agree. Yeah, I think it's a tough one. I think that would be my biggest read, but a tough one for Kylo is what I mean.
Oh, it was a tough one for Kylo. I agree. I think Cad's still in a good spot. That doesn't mean it's an auto win, but Cad has some of the tools to fight into that Kylo deck that a lot of like the Quinlans weren't running.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things is having the tools and then making sure that you get the tools and that your inventory isn't so spread to handle different things that it can't handle the one way you get attacked or the strongest way. But that's in anything in life. Okay, so now the really like opinion based stuff. Overall, if you had to rate the event from our scale of perfect, good, room for improvement, or bad, Kyle, what would you do?
I'm gonna go with good. It got a lot better. I mean, I would have given it a lower rating towards the beginning and a higher rating towards the end. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to even it out and call it good. My day 1, pretty disappointing, right? I had to buy. So my plan was I want a side event grind, right? Like I want to go do side events. I want to enjoy side events. I want to earn tickets. Oh man, that was a disaster. At least day 1, trying to just get in them, the lines, the ticket fiasco. I mean, I was one of those who they had run out of tickets, even though I did early check-in. I was a VIP. I couldn't get my tickets. I couldn't get my tickets the next day. I couldn't get into events. I waited in lines. I was pretty salty. I was pretty pissed, I'm going to use it even a stronger word. I was pretty pissed off, right? Like I couldn't really get into doing anything. And then as they kind of started to resolve it, everybody started to get like that FOMO and, people want stuff off the prize wall, but like I would have liked to have played games. Everybody was just split. You sit down, you want to split the tickets. Nobody wants to play. Everybody's like panicked to get tickets because
they're so worried.
Yeah, they're all so worried. And the worry was validated, by the way, on day 3 when they started selling out of everything. So I get it. It's fair. But like I wanted to just chill and like play games, right? I figured I got to buy. I can play some games. I can have some. No, I waited in lines and I was, mad with all the rest. Now, the reason I'll say good on that, though, is, my main goal getting there was get the showcases. Mission accomplished, right? Got him. Wait, I can't even get him in frame. Anyway, got the Luke and Vader. Got the Luke and Vader showcases, right? I said that if I leave here with those 2, I'm happy, and I left there with those 2 and a whole lot more. So I can't be too disappointed, from a prize wall perspective. Though I didn't get all the ones I wanted. I didn't get the Kylo. I didn't get the Rey. I didn't get the Shin Hati. Those are all gone by the time I had a chance. So that's kind of a bummer. But I'll give FFG some credit. Going up from day 1 to day 2, they got better with the side events. Then into day 3, it felt like they actually figured it out. Like by day 3, they had it down. The side events were running. People were all still just splitting and running pods and not really playing. But at least they had the process much better. The day 3 challenge, of course, was now everybody wants to spend their tickets and the lines around the block, right? It's like an hour and a half line. Everything's sold out. People are pissed again, So I don't know. I'm going to pass the baton back. I got other thoughts, but the ticket situation was gross.
Based on the thing, I listened to what you just said, and I think that we had a relatively similar experience because we had the buy. I think, again, what was me? But I think the people who had buys and then didn't qualify for day 3 had probably the roughest experience, because on day 1 it was a madhouse. On day 3 it was how do we make sure that we could get our tickets, support our friends, play some games. And we're kind of, I had line fatigue at that point, right? Like I was tired of waiting for an hour here, an hour there, even to get into the hall on Sunday. There was long lines where we had like these giant doors, no reason to have a line in any way, shape, or form. But honestly, Kyle, like hearing your description, I don't know how we could say without being overly charitable that it was good, right? And that's just from my perspective.
Let's focus on some of the other positives, though, like the other hall stuff. I didn't think I'd meet any of the artists. Like when I heard there was going to be artists there, I was like, I don't care about that. Sure. I actually went and met some of them. They were cool. I had a good time. I got some cards signed. That was something I didn't expect.
Yep.
You know, the big like X-Wing and Millennium Falcon and taking pictures with Chewie and R2, stuff that I wasn't expecting. Those were cool, right? Some of the interactions I had with people. I mean, my overall experience was still good. I still had a good time. I would do it again.
Sure,
right? I'm not saying I wouldn't, but they got to clean that stuff up, right? Like Denver, disaster. Minneapolis, better. Galactics, I expected even better. They're always listening. They're always saying how they're going to take that feedback and make it better. Pretty disappointed with the at least the initial impact there, and then trying to get through it. So again, I hope they listen. I hope for better in the future. But I still loved the event. I'm still going to go again, right?
Yeah, well, me as well. But I still like to complain. But yeah, I think my biggest takeaway comes from a logistic perspective. I think the main event was run very smoothly. Obviously, there was the decklist issue, which we'll talk about shortly. But I think that it's unacceptable to have lines that are between 2 and 3 hours long. I think it's unacceptable to have lines that are over an hour long. I think it's unacceptable to have people line up and be in a line for an hour to buy prize wall tickets to be told something sold out only for it to be restocked later. I think it's unacceptable for Kyle to spend 500 American U.S. currency dollars, a lot of fiat currency, to not get side event tickets, and to have to. There was a situation where we were waiting in line after being told that they would take care of us. Where we hope they are. We've been here for 2 hours at this point. Like, if they don't take care of us, we're gonna riot, right? I think it's unacceptable to have a card like Darth Tyrannus be promised to have enough for everybody, and some people were able to get 6, 8, 10, 12 and kind of ruin that for everyone. I think it's unacceptable to not have that stuff at a tighter area. I also thought the judging was unacceptable as well, which we'll talk about in a bit. But
we'll cover that later.
my main complaints are on the event production and the logistics of running a smooth event. There really wasn't any aspects that were smooth outside of the main event, in my opinion. And again, that is the priority, right? Like, woe is me with the day one stuff and everything. But it's ridiculous. Like the one line on day 3, one of our friends, Zorian, who comes to Denver sometimes, had, I think, thousands of tickets, and by the time he got up, he had to buy boxes of Legends of the Force. Like,
couldn't spend on anything else.
Not even Carbonite, not a single playmat. Like, it doesn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I think my only complaints about the event are logistics related. And I mean, honestly, I'm not a professional like you are with that. And I can probably pick out about 3 areas for improvement that, frankly, I could probably have done in my sleep. Or you can pay a grad student in pizza and beer and have this fixed. So I don't understand why it wasn't at the biggest event of the year. Mm-hmm. That being said, being that most of my time was spent in the main event, my perspective is very much different than both of yours. I had a phenomenal time. I think because of the logistics issues, I will not call it perfect. I will call it slightly above good, though. I did not have a single negative experience outside of my own play in a couple games, right? But like the way things were run for the main event was fantastic. The way that it was, the streaming of it, they had the area you can go watch it on the couches if you want to go see the feature events was awesome. The way that it was a very fun tournament to play in. I didn't have a bad experience with any of my opponents, like maybe 1 or 2 of us did. So with context, I had a fantastic time. And I understand that there are definitely some other experiences out there, especially since I feel like I got fairly lucky with that, but I have to give them a good rating on this one. It has improved every time from Denver to Minneapolis to Galactics. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more improvement on the logistics side from Minneapolis to here, but
yeah,
overall, like we're going to go into that, I think, actually, in a lot of it. Some of the stories that I was both adjacently involved with and, some of the stories that I know you have kind of color it in a little bit of a bad light from a running things perspective. But
well, I had a good time in the main event given the judging issues and everything else. I think the logistics really are the key point, right? And
agreed.
I think you also went into it not really like thinking, hey, I'm going to grind side events. Hey, I'm going to try to get as many tickets as possible and stuff like that. So maybe that's a better.
I got what I wanted out of it.
Well, that's but you did it by you bought tickets, right?
Some of that. I had enough tickets and I was able to finagle a few things to get like the very few things that I wanted, which is Kyle showing him, right? So I went in with an outside of the tournament, the main event. I didn't have a high list of things I wanted to do or felt like I was going to do. So again, with that context, it was really good for me.
Yeah. So my final negative note, just on the general stuff, is that I've been to Vegas a lot, right? Like for work, with my family, with friends, like all these things. I like Vegas. There's a lot of negative parts about Vegas. But one of the negative parts is that it does oftentimes feel that it is always crazy, always hectic, always unorganized, always trying to squeeze you for every last cent that you're worth, right? And it did feel, I was hoping going in that this would be a respite from that. This would be a just like a smooth place to highlight all the fun aspects that we did talk about, right? Like to be able to have that lack of frustration where, for instance, like on Sunday, I had to choose between hanging out with some friends and waiting in line. Right. And I know I don't want to speak for you, Sharky, but I believe that you found a friend in the front of the line and were able to have them buy you stuff. Right. Which
I got very lucky with that.
Yeah. And imagine if that wasn't the case. Right.
Like, well, from the swag perspective, you made the right call. Yeah. And I would have missed out on the one thing I would have wanted. I did get very lucky in that respect.
Totally. And I just think those are such easy things to fix. Right. Yeah. And I hope they do get fixed, right? And that's the biggest thing. And Kyle, like, you spent $500 on the VIP package. Like, there's no excuse for having you wait over a day to, like, imagine you're by yourself. Imagine you don't have any friends that are there, right? And you're just hoping, hey, I'm gonna go play some side events, like I'm gonna do it, and all of a sudden you have no way to get tickets. And in the beginning, they weren't letting you buy them. Instead of like you weren't allowed to pay and get in. And like, luckily we were able to give you tickets to use and stuff, but I don't know, maybe I'm being overly critical. Let us know in the comments where you side on. I will always be a little bit.
My biggest gripe real quick though is, why are tickets physical? That should be an easy digital kill. You have the QR codes on both sides of the badge. Like, you can absolutely tie this to an account. It's really, really easy to do that.
Well, that could have fixed a lot of things. Tyrannus, handing out the Tyrannuses, boop your badge.
Oh, right? You're limited to 2 playsets of each promo. I don't know. Something that fixes the supply issue.
There's no world that exists that someone should be able to get 6 showcases, like 3 sets of the pair, when someone can't get 1.
Agreed, 100%.
That's not equitable, and that's not what the underlying like message of the game really is either, in my opinion. And also, like, screw the tickets, like, for everything, for side events. Like, I know there was some complaints about the registration for the droid packs, but a similar system to that, like you queue in, you say, hey, I want to join an on-demand draft pod, sign up, you get a text when it's ready, meet here.
Why am I waiting in a line at all? Right, you have to make it all digital. Like, I'm not standing in a line in a giant event hall. But your point with the cards too, like Super Laser Blast. Look, I got hooked up by a friend is the only reason I got a Super Laser Blast, because they were gone.
Same.
It is unacceptable that one person can walk up and buy 200 of them. And you know what I mean? Like, now you can buy 3. It's connected to your QR. When you go buy it, they boop your code and they say, no, we see you've already bought 3. You're done. Yeah. I don't.
That's an easy kill. That's not even something that's all that far outside of the realm of, like, probably should have seen that one coming.
We can vibe code it, bro. No, but it's
you also, honestly could.
Yeah, I know.
It's not hard.
But it's also like, well, with payment information would be, all this stuff. But anyway, but like, if you had that kind of system, we could have enjoyed more of the vendors. We could have gone to the trading area and looked around. Like, we could have done X, Y, or Z.
See the panel revealing stuff.
Talk to more artists. Do the draft games. Play, like, take more pictures. Like, and the thing is that I don't think it's too much to ask for. I really don't. And I hope that they take the feedback and they build, because I think that they have dialed in the main event aspect of things. I do think that it has gotten really, really smooth outside of the thing that we'll talk about now. And that is At the end of day one, there was an error where deck lists were published and everybody was able to see that. So in response to that, they made all of day two open deck lists as well. A lot of hubbub, a lot of pushback, a lot of the Bothans didn't like this. They're being vocal about it. A lot of our friends, like Curtis from Utah, he's one that wasn't happy about it either. Where do you guys stand?
I think that's a colossal screw up, right? And what are you going to do, though? From their perspective, you kind of have two options. Make all deck lists open, which they did, which is probably the lesser of two evils, or let people submit new deck lists. But that could be unfair, right? Because if you gain an advantage by knowing kind of what the meta looks like day one and adjusting, or not everybody brought all their cards and could build a deck they want to change to, either way, this is still a disaster in some ways, right? Like for the Bothans, when they have like a secret deck with secret tech that people aren't aware of, part of the strategy there is hitting somebody with something they're not prepared for or not aware of. Mm-hmm. Now I can study the list and I can at least start to formulate a strategy that I would have had probably no chance in game one. And they should be rewarded for their innovation, right? The other thing, at least for me, it's like a little thing, but I don't run main deck upgrade hate. I made the decision not to do that, and I had it in my sideboard. My opponent looks at my list and goes, oh, no upgrade main? They're throwing that Saber turn 2 all day long. They know that I have no way to answer it, right? And that's frustrating because I made a choice, a strategic choice to help me in games that is now lost because my opponent can look at my list and say, I'm safe to do this now. You know what I mean? They should have to think about it. So, I think it hurts a lot of people in a lot of ways. I thought it was just that you used the word earlier, unacceptable. It's unacceptable, right? Whoever's pushing the buttons should know that when you close the tournament, not to do that. You know what I mean? So not good.
Yeah. We had this argument all the time about should we be doing upgrade hate in the main? Should we not? I was rewarded by that. There wasn't a single game one Saber or Vader flip on me because they knew it was there. And I'm on the side of that's bullshit. It's really isn't fair. But how devastating is it? How impactful do you think it really is, Sharky?
As someone who was unaffected by it, almost completely, I only had like 2 cards to go look for in each main deck, and I mean, I was almost unscathed. But that is very fortunate, and again, I have been very fortunate from that perspective all weekend.
Yep.
Whereas the innovative decks that the Bothans brought or Curtis had ready for it for people. Yeah, well,
maybe it's
Curtis was literally
deck,
there,
right? Who knows?
Just using Curtis as an example, he was literally there playing on the fact that people know what is in Han 1 allegedly, and then he's kind of playing a different take on it, and that burned him in multiple games. And so, from that perspective, it really sucks. I do think that they chose the lesser of the two evils. I don't know that I want to see, based on their logistics planning so far, I don't know that I would have wanted to see resubmission of deck lists. I honestly think that might have been a bigger shit show. However, I would really prefer they get this right by next week for any possible event where this might be a thing.
It has to be any 2-day event, right? It just
like
of the utmost
this should
importance.
Be fixed.
Yeah,
like that should be the highest priority thing to be like, okay, let's never have this happen again. This is going in every tournament note for any runner ever again. Just be aware on that maybe even work with Melee to get a 2-day tournament set up so that they can have it so that it's not even a thing to worry about in the future. Mm-hmm. But that needs to be fixed. That is probably my biggest problem with the way that the main event tournament was run, bar none. And it is a high priority to be fixed.
Yeah. I don't care what the rule is. I just want it to be consistent.
Yep.
That's it. Moving on to, I think, a really big issue. And I thought the judging was pretty atrocious. And usually I'm pretty supportive of judges. I know it's a thankless job. But I was victimized by a really, really bad judge call. I've filed a complaint. I have no problem doing that. And the same judge who had that call against me, I believe, made another egregious call against Reflex from Boston. I witnessed this happen as well. On top of that, our teammate Paul had another utterly, in my opinion, ridiculous judge call where it was the only time I've ever heard of the rule that dictates who has to mulligan first being enforced. This was in day one. And a judge, basically the situation was Paul had initiative. He played 2 resources down and technically didn't follow the letter of the rule. I want that to be clear. he put 2 resources down. His opponent decided he was going to mulligan, and Paul said, "Hey, I'm going to mulligan." This is something that happens all the time. Outside of online play on Petronaki or Karabast, I have never seen anyone stick to that rule at all. Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. I understand the finer points of that. The judge in that situation ruled that not only did Paul get, I think, a warning for that situation, but the hand was already shuffled back into Paul's deck, so the judge ruled that the opponent got to look through his deck in a non-open deck list game and pick 6 cards to compose his hand. Luckily, Paul won the game because his opponent gave him 3 bounty hunters quarries for whatever reason. But yeah, I think that there needs to be a focus on the quality judges who are qualified, who care about the competitive landscape, who focus on this game over others. I know that the Cascade Games judging program is very well respected and acclaimed across Star Wars Limited and in other games as well. I'm a novice in that area. Kyle, you probably have a little bit more input than I do there, but I got to be honest, I don't give a fuck about other games. I don't care how experienced you are as a judge in any other TCG. I care about your experience here and your quality as a human. I do, and I think in a couple of the head judges specifically, they're lacking in that. And I've been super negative throughout the podcast, and that's par for the course. But I will also say, like, we know tons of judges who are amazing. That I go at him. Yeah, like there's Kyle, the judge in Utah, Alex, who was on the main stage in the finals overseeing the matches. These are excellent judges who care and want to provide a smooth event. And it's a thankless job. I know all that stuff, but some egregious situations, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll echo, especially that reflex call. I'm not going to get into the details. That might come out through other shows. Yeah. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Right? But I have just 3 observations. So one you already hinted on. I wanted to call out our Utah judge friends again.
Yeah,
they're great.
They're fantastic.
Yeah, they've had multiple events I've been to. I'm proud to see them getting the opportunity here at Galactics. Hopefully, I continue to see it. I saw them in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. I saw them in Denver. I see them in Utah. Yep. They're traveling all over doing this and just getting more experience, doing better and better. Right. I guess the other 2 the observations that I would have would be. Maybe with the judging program, and I know it's still something that's evolving. I took the apprentice judge test. I'm working on level 1. It is very rules focused, and then as well as kind of interpersonal focused. What I don't see in there that maybe it should be added is like a play component. Like you take a driver's test, you have to prove you can drive a car. Maybe you need to prove you can play this game, right? Or at least have a lot more, or at least a base level of experience playing the game, which would help you when you're trying to, understand it from the player perspective. I don't know how that would work, but I don't know that it exists today.
Yeah, I agree.
The other observation would be, and this may be anecdotal, but we're at a high level event. We're at a very high level competitive event. Some people were getting a little too riled up, right? And so, the judges have to deal with, I'll say, people's bullshit, around me. I was never involved in a judge call. Fortunately, all my opponents were awesome. We had good, clean games. It was totally not necessary. And so we never talked to any judges about anything. In fact, we actually had one dispute and we just resolved it. I was like, if you want to call a judge, you can, I don't care. But, we both agreed, just, took care of it at the table. And I think a lot of good players do that. Mm-hmm. My observation, though, was like a lot of these testy ones, and I don't know if this is because it was Galactics. I saw it more, but around me, a lot of the confrontations seem to be between American players and non-American players. And I take that for what it's worth. That could be coincidence. I don't know if it's like communications barrier or whatever was going on, but it did seem like every time there was a heated discussion, like not just a judge call, but a heated judge call. And I saw several. That seemed to be the case.
And there were translators involved every time as well.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a play style thing or what, but it seemed like that was always the way it was.
Yeah, and that's the truth. I just got a warning on my camera for it being a little too hot as it gets very warm in Denver, and I have my fans off. So let's hope that turns on, and I'll just be in darkness for a little bit, I suppose, because I have no other option. But my instance was with a European player. Reflex's instance was with a European player. the game after my instance, what happened with me, I won't get into it as well, but one of my opponents tried to pressure me to concede in a draw situation, in my opinion, right in front of a judge as well. One of my observations in this situation is that if you're a judge watching a game, I need you to be present. You know, this isn't a time to get a little break to sit down and take a breath. This is a time that you're watching, right? And I think that's very important. I came back from that judge instance, and there was an issue where the game next to me actually had 2 judge calls in one instance, right? Like when I came in, I was 8 minutes late to the round, and there was a heated confrontation happening between a Spanish player and probably a 12, 13-year-old kid. The kid was close to tears. You know, you hate to see that. And then later in the game, there was another instance where that same player had 1 card left in his deck. He claimed he knew what it was, and he flipped it over during the action phase to confirm. And the judge ruled in his favor as well. So, on top of that, Kyle, we had some great experiences with European players when we were doing the side event pods earlier on Friday, right? Like, so, and generally speaking, I love people from everywhere. Like, I love going to Europe. I consider myself very open to all those experiences. I want to experience those things. If I had to chalk it up to one thing, I think it might be the language barrier, and it's tough because, you know, you don't have the same foundation of communication, and in these situations, like you said, Kyle, the ability to resolve things civilly often starts with communication. And when you can't communicate in the way that you're used to on both sides, right, not just for English speakers, for anybody, I think it's pretty difficult.
I think what I've noticed that was consistent across at least a lot of the judge interactions that were problematic isn't so much that it was handled in a way that was inconsistent. A lot of leeway was given to the language barrier. A lot of leeway was given to the possibly not knowing the rules. A lot of leeway was given to a lot of stuff that, frankly, we wouldn't, as native English speakers, be given leeway for. And I don't think that I'm saying, though, the English speakers are we're being hated on, but it should be consistent across the board that you understand when you're at this level of an event that asking your opponent to concede is absolutely incorrect.
Yeah.
There is no situation where that's okay. And if you don't know the rules, that doesn't matter. Same with some of the other interactions of like the flipping the card over. There's no time where that's acceptable. Not a single one. I can tell you exactly what the card is. I can draw it and then show it to you next turn, but there's no situation where during the turn before that, it's okay to flip that card over. And so the consistency, or the lack thereof consistency, I think is really what escalated something from a funny joke kind of thing or a situation that can be resolved even in a manner that's very calm. And it escalated to a point where we had people literally yelling and trying to be escorted from the premise. Like, there's some weird stuff that can get escalated because you're being too lenient on things instead of just being consistent on the rule that is already written down most of the time.
If we're not here to compete at the highest level, where are we supposed to do that?
Where's the line? Exactly.
It's not showdowns, right? It's not weekly play. Yeah. If it's not Galactics, is it PQs? Is it like...
So, yeah, and again, I'd like to see a little more consistency on the rulings. That's
and
all.
that consistency goes back to the open deck list thing. That consistency, it goes back to the ability to walk into a convention and know you're not going to spend half your day consistently standing in a line, right? Goes back to saying, I could trust this prize wall to consistently have the cards in which I want to purchase, and so on and so forth, right? And I've been bitching and complaining about my situation. I know Reflex was like rightfully freaking so. And yeah, I love the game. I want to see it go well. I think what we have seen over the past year, and I, myself and Kyle, I won't speak for you, Sharky, but we haven't played a game made by Fantasy Flight before. We don't have any baggage from previous engagement like I know a lot of other players do. I think right now we could confidently say this game is super healthy. It's going to survive for another calendar year at minimum, probably more, right? We hope more. But maybe a year ago, 6 months ago, we weren't as positive about those things. So I think those are like amazing and like I that's what I want. But I want to make sure that the small stuff is being handled as well.
I want to go back to what I just said a minute ago. This goes back to consistency. The peak is actually fantastic. I was very fortunate to be a part of the peak experience for this weekend. Obviously, in your case, you probably were on the lower end of it in terms of like the overall curve. The peak is great. Let's make it consistent. Let's make the floor a little higher for everybody. The ceiling is there. Just let's refine the process to make it a lot better for everybody.
And that being said, I still had a great time. Right, like exactly. I still, even in the games I lost, like in game 1, I lost to Mickey D. Like we're great friends. We sat down, we looked at our matchups, and we were like, oh man, got to play each other first round. But we both said, hey, on the bright side, we get to hang out for an hour.
Yeah,
right.
The first round, day 1, I ran into Blaine that I met in Atlanta. Same thing. It's like out of 2,000 people, this really happened. Like, come on, it was a great time still.
Exactly. And then Zach from McClunky and I, we played in Atlanta, had a great conversation. Did the same thing here. Like these are the highs. I think that's a great way to
highs are great.
The peaks and the great stuff is so good that it's a shame that we are spending energy and air talking about the negative.
Yep.
Cool.
Let's not talk about the negatives anymore.
I think we got a few more in our final thoughts, a few more positive things to touch on. So
I'm actually really excited for these.
All right, Kyle.
Yeah, we had a few things I think we wanted to mention. I thought one of the coolest things that they did, which was obviously expected, was to start to highlight some of the upcoming content, some of the new sets, some of what's coming out. And I have only seen a couple of cards from the upcoming set, but the new mechanics, Plot and Disclose,
look
awesome.
Yeah.
These look like they are going to happen, right? The first one was Plot. We've been hearing about, or at least talking about Smuggle just being an excellent mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
I want Smuggle to come back. Plot's kind of Smuggle light, right?
Adjacent,
it allows you to bring cards out of the row kind of in a different way. It's like a conditional Smuggle, right? But it's back, and I think that's one of the coolest mechanics. So I'm happy to see that.
Mm-hmm.
And then Disclose is a really interesting mechanic.
Creative mechanic.
Which one is that?
Very creative.
Catch me up
so
on
Disclose, that like Cyril Karn. If you haven't watched Andor yet, Cyril's from Andor, and he says Disclose, and I believe it is 2 aggression icons and a villainy icon, and so it says you disclose those 3 icons from your hand. So maybe you have a red-black card in your hand and another red card. I'll show you these 2 cards from my hand. I'm giving you some information. I'm disclosing that information to get an effect. And that effect might be do 2 damage to a unit. Make your opponent discard a card. Whatever. I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of cool disclose options, right? But it's basically I'm going to disclose my hand or a part of my hand, give you that information for an effect, which I think is really cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I think these mechanics look a lot better than, say, like Coordinate and whatever the other terrible one was in that set. That nobody ever used. Yeah, right. Like those mechanics were kind of and didn't really work out outside of like a couple of cards. These mechanics you're going to see all over the place, I think, right? I mean, it depends on how powerful the cards are, but at least the couple we've seen so far are going to get played. So, it's just to see the future of like, here's our, next set. Here's the roadmap, set. Here's the future of competitive play. Here's what season 1 looks like. Here's the bright future we have. Get you pumped up, get you excited, totally. Right? I'm like, great. Well, I can't wait to play all those sets. Like, it's
and cool. One of the coolest new plot cards.
Cad Bane.
Cad Bane, buddy.
Yeah.
I think we've seen like 4, so let's temper.
Cad Bane's
so far,
I'm
it's
happy.
really cool. So another thing is that speaking of the future, we saw the point system for Galactics for next year. It's invite only, but there's a day 1 open, so it's relatively the same thing. We're hunting for that quote unquote buy. It's not the full buy, but quote unquote buy in this situation. We also got the word that Limited's going to be involved, which is, in my opinion, probably great for the game overall. I think in talking to friends across the country and, store owners locally, people don't show up for Limited or Draft, and it's a great way to get into the game. Kyle, I think that's where we met in set 1. Like, I was drafting every weekend. I was playing sealed every weekend, so I had no cards. There's no way to get them, right? And I think they're fun when there's a lot of people. The vibes are high. We got to get back to that, and I think having competitive support. Sharky, you don't like Limited, but you don't like Limited because there's no competitive support. This changes things.
And I said on the podcast, as soon as there's competitive support, I'm diving right in. And funny story, I'm thinking I'm just going to buy a box every set now just to have set aside so we can do draft practice, because now we need to practice it. Mm-hmm. We need to do sealed. We need to do drafting. We need to start showing up to those things now because it is a part of the Galactic event, the main event. You need to be ready for it.
Yep. And that's an area where casual players might have an advantage, right? The people who like live in, who I don't want to play competitive. I want to play sealed, right? Like they're doing it. We got to catch up. We got to grind. So that's a good note.
Like this taste of it has gone out the window now.
Yeah. I don't care what the rules are. I just want to know them. Right, I just want to know what I'm doing and what the plan is, and me seeing the schedule a year out and the Galactic's going back to the Venetian. I like that certainty, and I like the Venetian, so it's good. Kyle,
yeah, I think drafts and limited play are something that you guys know I enjoy very much. Mm-hmm. And to your point, it's kind of died. So I'm hoping this also pumps life back into the stores. Gets people wanting to do it. I can show up for a draft and there's actually people to draft with. Yep. Like I said, that's something I wanted to do out at Galactics. Unfortunately, even for the draft pods, people kind of wanted to rush through it and split tickets. And the other part about it is I don't like the best of one, that also incentivizes people just to kind of rush through it. But I love drafting. I think it's fun. I think there's, a competitive component to it already, at least, for having to choose and pick which cards. Sure. Sealed can be frustrating from times. You can just get a bad sealed pull and it is what it is. But you still have to have the ability to, kind of play what you have, work with what you got, that sort of thing. So I am excited for much more, limited play. On our other list of stuff, one of the positives that I ran into this weekend, and I don't think I mentioned it earlier, but ran into the head of the Night Sisters. So
that's cool.
Yeah, if you guys don't know, the Night Sisters is a Star Wars Unlimited Discord for the women, women who play the game. So my wife is an active member in there, Jillian the Nerd Slayer. She loves being part of that community. So I kind of met some of the Night Sisters while I was there, got a button, said hi. I think when we were hanging out with Frank and Courtney, I was able to kind of help pass that link along, recruited a couple more Night Sisters, sent them the link, that sort of thing. So I thought that was fun. I didn't mention that under my fun earlier. It was overall a good time.
It's a building process for any community, any group. Like it's the community of Smooth and the sub communities within. And if one's healthy, hopefully the other ones can be healthy and vice versa. Right. And that's just how you get it. And to your point about bringing life into the stores, like that's how you get new players in the game too. Yeah. Right. It's not by getting your butt kicked to construction every week. It could be a frustrating start, especially for someone who's new to this kind of game overall, right? So a lot of really good positive stuff. I think that's all we get. Godshark, any final notes as we kind of get out of here?
Final notes and we may have covered a lot of negative stuff, but my overall experience this weekend has been fantastic. I'm exhausted, and I'm exhausted in a good way. It was a fun time, and at this point, like I might be exhausted, but I'm also considering like bailing on a few things to go to a PQ in the next couple of weeks. So like
that's life, right? Yeah, and that's a great way to put it. We were negative, we were complaining, we were annoyed, but it's because we love it so much, and there's so much potential, and the fun always is there. So a lot going on this week. We have this one for you. Yeah. We'll be
one more.
Go please.
No, I was gonna also mention that on Friday.
Hopefully, I was gonna tee you up for that, Kyle.
Oh,
thanks, brother. So a lot here going on the channel this week, including something from Kyle shortly, but we got this going on, and then later on we're going to link up with Paul, Mackay, and Steve, try to get a quick deck tech. It's gonna be really hard to schedule everybody, so we'll probably do like some mini shots and then put it all together for you, and that's when we'll dive into the data, the deck list, some numbers, and some nerd stuff. And then Kyle, I think that you have something going on later in the week that you can talk about. Sharky, make sure to be quiet. I'll put Kyle on the main screen and we'll give him the validation he so deserves.
All right, you settle down. Although I don't know if we should be talking names as far as upcoming content goes, but hopefully we're going to be doing some collaborations with some of our friends from other channels, right? Bringing in some of our friends to talk about things, that sort of thing. So I suppose once we get nailed down,
you don't tease until it's confirmed. You don't tease until it's confirmed.
All right. Well, if I have to bring in my brother who's never played this game, then that'll be the guest.
We'll get him going.
Anyway, midday showdown, right? We're going to continue those. So hopefully this Friday, Julian the Nerd Slayer and I will hit a midday showdown. I think this week, that surprise Bothan deck, I managed to get myself a Kylo showcase. I want to play that deck. I want to cycle it through. Jillian doesn't know anything about it, so the plan is to get her with it, right? Yeah. Like build the deck. She's not going to know what's coming and get OTK'd. That might be fun.
Let's do Towson versus Kylo.
Yeah, that's fair.
There you go.
So she, we pulled the Towson showcase.
Yeah, I know.
can play both those decks, right?
And when you say we, you mean her.
I mean, yeah, I don't open showcases. She did. Anyway, she, with the world champ being Towson and being one of the Night Sisters, she did say to me the other day, "I want to play Towson." So we're gonna build her Towson. We're gonna build Kylo, and we're gonna do a throwdown of the Galactic Championship finals, I guess.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you were able to tell everybody what you got going on this week. I had a great time hanging with you guys this weekend. Great time breaking down this stuff, and like I said, a lot of positives, some negatives, and only improvements in the future. So for Kyle, for Sharky, I'm Jordan. We'll be back probably too often this week. We got to get some time away from each other, but until then, we'll talk soon. Bye.